What's up, everybody? Back with another patch notes review. This is Wild Rift patch notes 2.1b. Honestly, be really happy with the state of 2.1a, so not looking for any kind of like drastic changes, I think. We'll see what they have to do. For the most part, I think actually the game's in a pretty good spot right now. I've been really enjoying it. Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of good meta picks, a lot of different flexibility, you know, Leandri's nerf kind of hit some of the OP champions a bit, everybody feels a bit more closer together. But yeah, we'll just take a look and see what they've changed for 2.1b. Wild Rift patch notes 2.1b, the Might of Targon's aspects descend from the heavens this patch, bringing nerfs to Aurelian Soul, the Conquer Rune, and Backdooring. Interesting. With an eye to the heavens, the final major balance and content patch of 2.1 is here. Explore the majesty and might of Targon through 3 of its most iconic champions, Leona, Diana, and Pantheon. Explore their stories in the Path of Ascension event and pick up some fun rewards along the way. Finally, we're taking a swing at a couple of powerful mid laners and nerfing backdoor victories. Now we started to see organized competitive teams make frequent use of this strategy. One more thing, keeping an eye on Katarina's initial low win rate, we want to make sure players are adapting to her playstyle and controls for making any changes. Enjoy patch 2.1b. Interesting that Katarina has a low win rate. I guess I'm not that surprised. She's a little bit difficult to play, just have too many good matchups, definitely has kind of a higher skill cap champion. So I don't know if buffing her is necessarily a good idea, because I think it's fine if she's just like one of those harder champs to pick up, but she's still rewarding if you play her in the right scenario, which I think is where she sits right now. But I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, they're giving it a few weeks at least, so you know, I'm sure they'll make a good decision at the end. New champions, Leona the Radiant Dawn, imbued with the fire of the sun. Leona is a holy warrior of the Solari who defends Mount Targon with her Zenith Blade and the Shield of Daybreak. Leona probably be really strong in the meta, honestly. Another big tanky support, very relevant in dual lane. Very strong engage. I have no doubt that she'll be strong unless they really just lower her numbers way too much, bringing her into Wild Rift. I think she'll probably be very prevalent in the meta immediately from release, so be excited to be locked down for 100 years. Diana looks pretty interesting, actually. They've changed her ult in Wild Rift, so it's like a channel. The longer you hold it, the bigger the circle gets before it pulls everybody in, which I think is really cool. I think it's a really interesting like mini rework that might make her a little bit more relevant. I think she's definitely very interesting, so I'm excited to give her a try for sure. Pantheon, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, the Wild Rift developers have decided to reinstate his previous E condition, where I believe if it's enhanced with his passive, he blocks tower shots. So that's gonna be really, really annoying. I have no doubt Pantheon will be really good, especially because of that. So let's just hope, I guess, that he's not too broken. But I have a feeling Pantheon will be really, really powerful, and Leona will be really, really powerful. Diana's a bit of a question mark, but I do think the ult mini rework is actually really interesting and makes her seem really cool. So she might be a little bit more prevalent because of that. The ult gets really big as well. I'm talking like it's as big as like mid lane, like the middle part of mid lane where the minions meet. Her ult gets like that big. It's pretty massive. So it'd be pretty cool if she's relevant, because she hasn't ever really seen much play in PC, but maybe she'll be pretty cool in Wild Rift. Skins, do we love skins? Classic Dark Valkyrie Diana, Barbecue Leona, it's classic Pantheon ones. I talked about this Pantheon skin earlier, about how it's like the TFT one. I remember when it came out in TFT and he just like read across the arena. Absolute classic. So excited to read across the Wild Rift as well. Project skins was coming this patch. It's pretty cool. Project skin line's very neat. Some of the cooler ones in here. I really like the Ash one. It's one of my favorite skins in the game. Events, Path of Ascension. What awaits you on Targon's Peak? Find your path, make the climb. They've been teasing this on Twitter a little bit. Seems like there's going to be like 3 paths. I'm assuming it will be like 1 for each champion. So I would imagine this event will give us a free champion. That's generally how they do these kind of things, but it seemed like there was 3 paths and you could pick a path and you'd get quests. And I would assume that the champion is the reward for a path. Not sure if you could pick more than 1. Maybe you can get all the champs for free. Maybe you get coins or something again. I imagine we'll get at least 1 champ out of it, if not more. So it'd be pretty cool, I guess. All right, champion changes. Aurelian Soul. Aurelian Soul is still way too strong, even though the Leandri's nerf. While we are nerfing his most powerful rune, Conqueror, we feel the need to add additional 2 down to his mid-game strength and more aligned with other champions. So we got star-based damage changes here. Looks like it comes even about 97. Okay, so it looks like it's about almost 20% across the board. It's pretty significant. Yeah, 50 to 40. So it's basically a 20% nerf across the board up until about somewhere like level 9, level 10. So a big early game nerf for actually, like 20% of his star DPS going down. Obviously in the mid game it's a bit more extreme, but definitely a big nerf to his early numbers. Aso already a pretty weak laner, to be honest, so any knock to his early game is pretty bad for him, because he already kind of struggles to trade with some of the other mids because of the specific windows he needs to trade, the way he needs to trade. It's about the stars and growing the ring. There's a lot of counterplay to it. He doesn't have great range. He's very reliant on his stun. So overall, I think this is actually really a really big hit hit to ASO. Same here with the base damage of Celestial Expansion. It looks like it's going down a bit, about 2 and 12. He's having base damage lowered on his W as well. So that's pretty expansive. This is also a really big nerf. The ult cooldown going up. It's actually gonna make ASO feel a lot worse. This is probably gonna push him a little bit out of the meta for sure. I think he might fall out of S here, honestly, and drop down to A. These are actually pretty big number changes, like, because it seems quite small, but you have to think that this is like, if he has to hit someone with stars 10 times, you know, to kill them, suddenly instead of being 10 times, it's like 12 times, 13 times, and it's really hard to consistently be hitting your W stars all the time. You have to deal with the cooldown, you have to deal with positioning. Any nerf that makes ASO take 2 or 3, 4 more star ticks to kill somebody is really, really significant, actually, because it lowers his DPS quite a lot. Definitely could see ASO getting a lot less play on this patch, and this ult of light cooldown, or voice of light cooldown nerf, is actually quite significant as well. Part of his ult CD being low gives him a lot of safety, lets him peel for himself quite consistently, which lets him position aggressively, you know, because he has no other escape really except like flash and maybe his fly in a weird position, but mainly his ult is his own self-peeling tool, pushing them backwards so he can like follow up with a stun. So it's actually pretty significant. I think ASO will probably drop a tier here. We'll see how it feels, I guess, but overall I think these are like really scary changes that will probably push him out of like the top of the meta. Surprised to see Aurelion Sol is like the main target here. I would have thought Orianna has a higher win rate, but I guess Aurelion just is doing better in stats. Probably just more consistent. The thing about Aurelion and Orianna is you need to be a good Orianna, I think, to consistently like beat and outperform an Aurelion Sol. I think maybe Aurelion is just a bit easier for people to play and carry with once they get a few games of him. You don't have to be like as forward or aggressive as you might have to be with Orianna to like succeed. So maybe that's why Aurelion Sol's numbers are a bit higher in stats, and that's why he's getting targeted by the nerf here. Whereas Orianna probably fell a bit this patch with the Andrews nerf. Soraka's a bit weaker compared to her counterparts, giving her some more star power to help her shine as a healer and silencer. Little buff to Astral Infusion at later ranks, mainly 10, 20, 30 at rank 2, 3, 4, and a reduction on the cooldown of her silence. Not bad, you know. Not sure we ever really want to see Soraka in meta, to be honest. She's pretty obnoxious, but hey, she's not being played, she's not being played. Maybe these changes will make her feel a little bit nicer. Not really sure that her scaling is necessarily the issue. I think it's more just like she doesn't really do much, you know, but maybe she'll see a bit more play. I think the cooldown on her Equinox is definitely the change that could make her be played a little bit more often. Tristana, giving Tristana a small buff to her mana and rocket jump slow to make sure she is rewarded more consistently for jumping in. Base mana per level up and mana at level 15. This is the same stat actually. So more mana growth, not exactly huge for Tristana, I'd say, and a slow duration increase on rocket jump. I don't think either of these changes are really that big a deal. Maybe it'll be cool. Not sure. Seems kind of useless to me, but maybe this is a bigger deal than it looks like. I think it doesn't really fix any of the problems that Tristana has in comparison to the rest of the popular ADCs right now. Yasuo overly benefited from the Blade of the Rune King changes last patch. At the same time, his defensive stats are too high given his passive shield is mobility, taking a good chunk out of his base armor and health to help his opponents capitalize on his mistakes more. Also adjusting his dash speed to better match his pace from League PC. I was thinking about this recently about how he actually dashes much faster in Wild Rift than he does in PC in the early game at least. 5 armor down, he's lost 80 base health, and his dash speed is now from 1200 to 900. Super significant changes. I think it's actually going to push Yasuo maybe out of the game entirely for now. He's really going to become even more of a one-trick champion than he already is. Like, you really have to be some insane Yasuo or you're going to get smashed. Like, I think a lot of the advantages he has right now at mid lane come from his like high natural stats and mobility, preventing him from kind of like getting bullied by anybody. But lowered stats just means it's so much easier for range mid laners to actually punish his aggression. And especially the lowered speed on his dash is going to be really significant for his trading. It's going to be much harder for him to dodge skill shots with it. It's going to be much easier to react to him doing it. I think honestly this is really going to hurt Yasuo. I'd be surprised if he stays in the meta as heavily as he does right now, because these changes are really going to hurt his lane phase, which is pretty much one of his only boons right now, is that he can pretty much take any lane phase and at least go even, if not kind of dominate it with good play. But now it's going to be so much harder to like get those rewarding trades or be able to like bully someone out of mid, because these are just going to make it so much easier to trade back on him, and he's going to take so much more damage. And when he's taking more damage and he has less base stats, it's just kind of an L all around. So I think Yasuo would definitely be pushed out of the meta a bit here. We'll see if he can stick around. We'll see how the one tricks do. But he's really going to be more of like a, you have to be super insane at Yasuo. It's really hard to get away with him, I think. Mainly because of the sweeping blade change. Ziggs' Mega Inferno Bomb is pretty hard to hit sometimes, especially when it's flying across the map, so we're giving a slight area of effect buff. On the other hand, he takes down turrets too quickly, so pulling it back a bit on his Satchel Charge execution. So true, dude. Satchel Charge is destroying my games. It's actually crazy. Nah, but Ziggs definitely a bit underplayed. Starting to show up in pro play a bit. But overall, I think these changes are fine. Like, it's just nice quality of life, honestly. Like, this is a relatively significant change for his team fighting. But all things considered, it's probably not going to do that much. It'll make his ult a little bit easier to hit, make it a bit more consistent. It's a pretty significant range increase, I won't lie. But I don't think it's going to, like, drastically change Ziggs outside of, like, him just being good in general. Maybe he will actually jump up a bit because of Aurelion Sol's lack lack of space in the meta, maybe he'll just be a better, more consistent pick over Aurelion. So we could already see Ziggs getting more play this patch anyway, just because Aurelion's getting weaker. Ziggs is another good answer to Orianna, but not sure. It's a good change, making team fighting a lot more consistent, but overall, not super drastic changes. I don't think they'll massively change Ziggs. I think what's more likely is that you start seeing play as an alternative option into Orianna due to the nerfs that ASOS received. Items. Bucket is too strong as the first item. It completely nullifies the lethality of early game team fighting. We're taking a large swing in its early power and price to cover being punched too quickly. Interesting. Price 500 to 800, shield amount 140 to 420 to 70 to 420. So actually not even any like kind of like buff at all to like the mid late game power of Locket, which kind of makes me feel like it's just going to fall out of the meta entirely. This is a really big price to pay for supports in the early game. I think you're pretty much never going to see supports buying Locket anymore. Honestly, I think Redemption will be the go-to item, or maybe Stone Plate, another cheap option that gives you a lot of early game power. This is honestly, I don't even know if I like this change. I feel like Locket was very strong, but I don't even know if it was necessarily overbearing, but this is just going to push it out of the game entirely. I don't know who's going to buy this anymore. This kind of just feels like it's killing the slot. Like nerfing the early shield amount also just seems kind of counterintuitive. Like doesn't really seem to have any real purpose, I think. Like it's just going to make it less and less appealing. At best you're going to have like a jungler buy it now, but I don't know why a jungler would buy it, especially because it's so expensive. I think this is just too many nerfs at the same time. I actually don't like this change at all. I think Locket has been pretty strong, but honestly this patch, and especially since the mitigation of stacking Lockets, I think it's been pretty fine. I don't think I've had any massive issues with Locket myself. It kind of just feels like part of the game, but maybe they just want to remove that aspect entirely. I think this is kind of sad, honestly, that they're just completely removing it from the game as far as I'm concerned. This is completely unappealing entirely. I don't know who's going to buy this. There's just way better options for cheaper. So you're not really a fan of this change, but I guess it will make the early game a bit more kill heavy. Maybe make early team fights swing more. But I already feel that's kind of a problem the game has anyway, where the games are super decided by early fights and early dragon brawls, and I think Locket was part of mitigating that super explosive nature a bit. And with this garden, I worry those fights are going to be even more snowbally and games are going to be decided even faster. So all in all, not too sure I'm actually fond of this change. I guess we'll just see supports buying Redemption and Stone Plate a lot more often now. And we'll see nobody buying Locket. So it is what it is, I guess. Runes. Conqueror. After evaluating more usage data, we found that Conqueror is hyper overperforming on ranged AP champions when compared to other choices. It's also slightly strong in general for other ranged champions, so we're selectively nerfing its maximum output on ranged champions by a small amount too. AP per stack 4 to 12 to 3 to 9, and maximum stack adaptive bonus 10% on range to 7% on range. So actually kind of significant number changes. Might push Orianna into Electrocute, might push ASO into Electrocute. Not really the end of the world for those champs, but they do actually like Conqueror a lot, so it's a bit of a shame. I guess it's one of those things you just have to try, but it does seem like a pretty significant nerf. For AD carries, for ranged mages, even stuff like Akali could lose a lot of damage from this. You might see more Akalis going fleet now, just because it's a lot less AP than it was before. Again, the problem I have with this change is it's just kind of just hitting Conqueror, but the reason everybody goes Conqueror because it's performing so well is because there's no other runes. What are we meant to take, guys? There's no Comet, you know, there's no Hail of Blades, there's no Phase Rush. Like, I don't know what they want us to use here to replace Conqueror. So you might just see everybody going Conqueror anyway and just doing less damage. I don't know, maybe that's just how they want it, but I don't know, this kind of change is like sad because there's just like nothing else to use. Like, I hope that this is like just coming a bit early, and maybe for 2.2 there's more runes coming or something that would make this make a bit more sense to me. But overall, I think this is just kind of a sad change because like there's just nothing, there's no alternatives, right? Like at best we're playing Electrocute, but if it's just not as good an option, it's not as good an option. It just becomes like a numbers game of like, is the Electrocute burst more consistent than how much damage you get from Conqueror, you know? Like I don't know, like I would just like more rune options, honestly, as opposed to just like hitting the runes that are strong, because it just feels like it's like punishing players for using the only good choices, you know? I don't know. Systems. Backdoor bonus. Though we think backdooring should be viable in some situations, late game backdooring is becoming too easy, removing the mechanic where turret defense backdoor bonus lessens in the late game. I actually didn't know this, that it went down. I don't know if it's like a flat 66 to 33% or if it's slowly decreasing over the game. If this is just a flat drop at 18 minutes, then I don't think this change really matters that much, honestly. But assuming that it scales over the game, which I think is probably more likely, this will be pretty significant. Just stop people from basically just running at the Nexus randomly. I mean, it doesn't happen that often to me, but it has happened. But if it is just a flat drop, then I don't really see this change affecting too much. I'm not sure 18 minutes is the point where people are backdooring generally. They're just jumping at the Nexus way earlier than that. But I guess for super late game games, this will be a nice change to make the Nexus a bit more resilient. So if you're behind, you can focus more on like trying to come back as opposed to sitting in your base all the time. Lane swaps. We're seeing an overwhelming amount of lane swaps to force 2v1 lanes competitive play. We don't think this is the most intuitive or healthy playstyle, so we want to address it sooner rather than later. To maintain clear phases of the game, we think laning should last at least a few minutes minutes in the early game, so we're giving turrets more defensive power, full team turrets to take them down. Good changes, dude. Lane swapping has been a big issue in competitive right now. It's pretty much happening every game. I think they described it perfectly. I don't think, honestly, inherently lane swapping is like terrible. It's just not intuitive. It's not healthy. There's no way to practice it outside of scrims or playing against it directly. I think it's not very fun to watch. So overall, I think it's good that they're hitting it early. During the first 3 minutes, solo Baron and tower gets 90, mid lane tower gets 90. Good. So they hit top and Baron. Now both turrets during the first 3 minutes are a lot more resilient. This does mean that there's a lot less value in pushing like turrets early in the game now. So if you get like a solo kill or something, you pretty much always want to recall instead. It's always something to keep in mind. And the dual lane tower is actually weaker in the early game than it is right now, which is interesting. But now it's actually easier to kill the bot tower than it was before. It's actually not, because now they added this bonus metric where 2 champions give 10 armor magic resistance. But actually it's the same in Dragon Lane. I have to read ahead before I make sweeping decisions or statements. And actually big gains to like additional champions pushing towers. So actually there's just literally no value in pushing towers at all in the first 3 minutes essentially. As soon as you're 3 champions plus, it's just actually going to be impossible. So they're completely blitzing the strategy entirely. Towers will stay alive for at least 3 minutes in the game. But overall I think it's pretty good change. Definitely going to hamper the late swap meta, which I think is really annoying and not very fun for anybody to play. Chat detection brought us some improved chat evaluations, ramping up to catch a majority of detected languages, which means we might run into more players who receive text or voice restrictions. Over the upcoming months, we'll continue to improve both our detection and the languages we support. The rest of you keep reporting players who are behaving in a disruptive way. Each report is sent to our behavior systems to review, and having the reports helps us continue to improve our machine learning models and get better at dealing with disruptive behavior. You hear that, chat? And viewers, report everybody who's bad. That's the gain here. Now we know. So yeah, that's 2.1b. I think overall, you know, interesting patch. Some kind of interesting hits here. Aurelion Sol definitely going to drop a tier. Ziggs maybe going up a tier, I'd say for sure. Yasuo definitely getting a lot weaker. I think Yasuo will be a lot more punishable the other game now. Outside of that, not too many changes. Lane swap meta killed for comp play. That's pretty cool. But overall, going to be pretty similar to last patch, I think, for the most part. Mainly just Aurelion Sol and Yasuo make a bit of a disappearance, I think. And maybe Ziggs rises in priority. But overall, not too much change from last patch. And like I said, I'm pretty fine with that. I think last patch is pretty good in terms of balance. So yeah, we'll just see how the three new champions affect the meta, and that'll be the biggest change, I imagine. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this patch review, and I'll catch you guys again next time. Thank you for watching.